Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Very excited to be here, to have you here, and very excited to have our guests, Laurie Narciso from Garage82 and Laura Zales from EDSI. And in a minute, we'll meet them. I want to introduce myself. My name is Mike Schlaf. I'm the CEO and founder of Maple Woodshop, and our mission is to help all children develop life skills through woodworking. We achieve that mission by training, equipping, and supporting schools, camps, and community organizations so they can offer impactful programs for youth. We're in about 108 locations around the country and growing. And so we're very excited today to talk about creating career pathways in underserved communities, and very grateful to have two experts with us. And so with that, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Laurie, would you go first, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name's Laurie Narciso, a CEO and owner of Garage82. Our mission is to help individuals increase their financial ability to earn money, as well as provide training. And we do that through providing pre-apprenticeship opportunities, short-term training opportunities to individuals who are typically underserved or underrepresented. So we work with folks through workforce investment boards that come to our local career link or workforce center to receive services. And we help connect them. So we work with non-custodial parents, we work with reentry populations, out of school youth, in school youth, different types of groups, minorities, women, non-traditional, to help them receive some type of short-term training that will ultimately lead them to either employment or entrance into a registered apprentice program or continuing education through community college or university enrollment. And I work a lot and hand in hand with Laura Zales, and so I'll pass the torch and let her introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Zales. I am Regional Director of Operations for EDSI, also a workforce development organization that is most passionate about serving underserved communities that are looking to get back into the workforce, just very briefly. But I did want to touch and as part of my introduction, make sure I mentioned that when I first came to EDSI 17 years ago, I came to work with our adjudicated youth population. My focus, my passion was to work with youth. And over the course of 17 years, through working with underserved populations, I am able to see such a transition in what youth are looking for and also what's available to them. So that really has changed over the years that I've worked here. So and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. And then just to back up a little bit for the person who might not be as familiar, can you talk about just some of the aspects, maybe Laura, EDSI's mission and what is workforce development for you?
Yeah, so workforce development is working with local workforce development boards to determine a statement of need for whatever population that is underserved. We look into the communities that we're working in and determine how we can support individuals that might not be currently supported. So, being even with the pandemic or times like this, what are the populations that are struggling, and then how we can support them. And then we work with the boards to develop opportunities and to apply for opportunities where we can serve them and help create career pathways for individuals that are either underemployed or not employed at the time that we meet with them. And that can be everything from creating a pathway of education leading to a long-term employment or employment, and then creating tiers for that employment through advancement opportunities, through training and different things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And could you just, give like one example, just to add a little color to it?
Sure.
thing maybe that's happening now, or one program that you're especially proud of?
Yeah, so just recently in July of 2021, we in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, we started a juvenile justice youth program. So we knew that youth was a focus for the Workforce Development Board, and there was many different providers providing services for youth, but not many providers were just focused on juvenile youth that were involved in the juvenile justice system. So we produced a statement of need for that population and developed a program that was specifically designed to serve that population in itself. And that design started with figuring out who in the community, what partners we would work with specifically to create a channel of referrals to that program. So for that specifically, it was working with the district attorney's office, the juvenile probation and parole, as well as lawyers, just different people within the court system throughout the county, to develop that pipeline and to understand what the needs of those customers were so that we could then, design our program. Once we were able to design the program, we then used those same individuals, those same partners to look at programming and to see, would this work for these customers? And are there small refinements or things we need to change? So we're working just consistently as more of a system and a network rather than just one as an individual entity or organization that's trying to create something.
Got it.
And that really goes back to workforce development in itself. Is workforce development is a system. It's, not one organization doing all the work. It's a bunch of different partners and a community that's built for the underserved population or anyone that needs our support to be able to navigate through in a simple way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a network, and I'll use that as a jumping off point for Laurie in Garage82. Laurie, can you give us a little bit of your history and career history and how you came to found Garage82?
Yeah, sure. For me, I used to work for EDSI, the organization that Laura works for. I spent 23 years in workforce development. I'll take it back to kind of when I was younger and in high school. I always had interest in the trades. I always wanted to be either a mechanic or work with tools or do things that my brothers were doing. And when I asked my mom, can I join, VOTEC school? And she said, no, girls don't join VOTEC school. You're going to go and follow the traditional path and go directly to college. And so begrudgingly off to college I went, and I ended up working in workforce development through EDSI, where I spent a long career serving underserved populations, like Laura mentioned, getting, folks coming out of incarceration, non-custodial parents, youth, TANF populations, people in public assistance that needed support to help find jobs, soft skills training, resume writing, application. We ran programs like that. And so I spent, about 23 years doing that. And then the pandemic hit, right? So I found myself, like many people in the world today, kind of scratching my head and saying, okay, I've been here for a while. I have a long way to go. What am I going to do next, in this occupation? And so I said, well, why not merge my two passions? Why not merge the workforce development work that I'm doing with my interest from way back in the day? Because I spend a ton of time in my garage fulfilling my quest to go into the trades, fiddling and building things and working with tools and kind of satisfying that need that way. But why not fill a need that's currently in the job market and merge the two? And so what I decided to do was open a business in the middle of a pandemic in 2020 and create a pre-apprentice program or short-term training options for those populations that are available to fill these extraordinarily large job vacancies, right? So it's a very competitive market right now for trades, for a lot of industries. Kids that are in school, in college, or in trade schools, they have job offers before they even graduate or get out. And so for companies that don't have access to these students, where do they find candidates? And so the goal of our program is to take these untapped populations that need work, that are hungry for that, provide some short skill training in the industries that are hiring, and give them the basic skills, work in partnership with those employers, and then place students that come from Laura's program or workforce programming into employment through that progression. So we're really just kind of creating a feeder system of from soft skills and barrier remediation and support through Laura's program. It's kind of how she mentioned the partnership works. They do a lot of that support component, and then their referral to me to help educate and train in specific industries or areas. And then we combine back together and work to provide paid work experience opportunities and placement opportunities in employer relationships, or enrollments into registered apprenticeship programs that are looking for individuals to become apprentices, as well as community colleges or trade schools that are looking to enroll new students. And for those kids that find a passion in the pre-apprentice program, that they say now, listen, I never thought myself going back to school or going to school at all, but maybe I want to now. I really enjoy this and I want to pursue it. What are my options? And so we can help progress that forward in that partnership by partnering with a lot of schools, for example, like Williamson in Delaware County, which is a technical trade school that offers full scholarships, right, for underprivileged individuals that can't afford school. They get a full ride for something like that. That if they apply and are accepted, great opportunities, right? So that partnership, we don't have that. That kind of opportunity for someone who really needs it doesn't exist. And so that's kind of how I got into created Garage82, and the name itself, right? Garage for me, hanging around and doing stuff in my garage. It's my passion. It's my fun place. And 82 represents, I had seen a study that said, I'm very passionate, as Laura is, about justice involved youth, reentry population. And after 9 years, somebody who had committed a crime over a 9-year period, if they're not engaged in some meaningful employment or activity or support system, 82% of those individuals reoffend and end up back into the system. And so I put 82 back into the name of my organization just to remind myself that how high that is. And I needed to do something, or wanted to do something to affect that number. And so that's how the business got its name.
That is great. It's a simple story, and and such credibility that you bring to it. I wanted to touch on one point, which is, I was wondering, Laurie, if you could give a few examples of like areas of focus on the hard skills side. Like what are the trades that you're focused on currently?
Sure. Presently, we're working with the carpentry trade, which is a broad umbrella. Somebody who becomes a carpenter has to have general skills of they need to have to understand how to use a tape measure, basic tools, mark, read plans and layouts, plumb, level, and square. They need to know the materials they're working with, and then they need to know the processes of how to build things that they're building. But not only that, but that then filters into the carpentry apprenticeship. There's pile drivers, there's millwrights, there's cabinet makers, there's machinists, right? All under the carpentry umbrella. And so the pre-apprenticeship will give them a taste of what opportunities exist in those industries. So someone may say, well, I don't want to be a carpenter. I don't want to come to your program. And I said, well, you don't have to be a carpenter or work with wood to come to our program. You can be an underwater welder. You can be a pile driver who puts, the piers and columns in for bridges. You can be a machinist who works with giant turbines and things of that nature. And so that all falls under the carpentry umbrella because there are transferable skills that all of those types of fields utilize. And so we start with carpentry because it is that entry point, but we can filter students through those other areas as well. We also have a short-term training program for forklift certifications to help individuals that might be working in manufacturing or logistics. It's a very quick online remote opportunity for those folks that are not not coming into the centers as an option to increase their skill set and get different paying jobs. And presently looking into generating a CDL branch as well to help with logistics and manufacturing. A couple of companies that delivery is through the roof, and companies are very desperate for truck drivers. And so we're going to start working on a branch that does that as well.
That's great. So there's, that's like literally a dozen or more hard skills that people can learn and that they can get paid while they're learning them. And then in our discussions, you've talked about all the barriers. And I might turn this over to Laura, because I think it was, EDSI who helps with those. And Laura, can you talk to like the various barriers that prevent a given person from engaging with this kind of opportunity and the range of services that EDSI provides to them?
Sure. Yeah, and I want to first touch on trends of what we see and I'll specifically talk to the underserved population of youth, which is what our pre-apprenticeship program is designed for. So usually we see the trends of, we have youth that have family members that were in the trades and are interested because they've seen the success of family and they want to further their career. And then we have the opposite trend of that, is that we have many individuals with not many parental figures in their life with, successful professional careers. So they don't know what to do. If we think back to like some of our childhood, it was thinking like, as Laurie said, like, what are my brothers and sisters doing? What are my family doing? And we see a lot of that dynamic not there for for the underserved population, is the family dynamic of not having, a professional career in the family to even look up to. So that definitely is apparent. So we have, I would say, the two. You have one population that has someone to look up to, but doesn't know how to get to the next step, right? Like they're in high school maybe, and what they hear from the educators is the next step is college. But that's not always the case. And then it becomes discouraging to that person because they think that in order to be successful means 4-year college. And so they then go into a period where they're confused, they don't know what to do. And that creates a barrier for them to really do nothing because they feel like that's not their end goal. So they're just going to stay and exist in nothingness. So that's where we can come in and we can start to support them in getting over that barrier and doing some career awareness around what are your interests? What do you like to do? As Laurie said, like, are you in the garage helping a parent or a brother or sister on the weekends? What are the things that you like to do? And then how can we start to build upon that as a career pathway for you? Like, right, we know that money doesn't buy us happiness, right? It's that we're happy and we feel like we have purpose in our employment. So we really try to emphasize that. But then when it comes to the other population of not having anyone to really look up to, we try to create that system of mentorship from the start. And so I would say the first barrier that many of our individuals have is that they have the inability to trust someone. So we develop, that is first barrier. So we develop a relationship where they feel like they can trust us and take some guidance from us. And then from there, we get into all of the barriers that they might have. And it is endless. I mean, everything from, not being motivated because you don't have food on the table every meal, or, not being able to apply for things because you have no access to identification such as birth certificates or social security cards, photo identification. You don't have the funds to be able to pay to get those things. So just really everything. And then when it comes into even like the identification as a barrier, it's not having parental support at home to be able to say, Mom, Dad, can I get a copy of my birth certificate? Or, because it's not there. And that's really the reality after that trust factor, is just identifying how do we start to get them employment ready before they even get to an opportunity for a career pathway. Because, you know, we can get them jobs or we can get them into programming really quickly, but getting them, you know, the identification to be able to do so is always a challenge. But then after that, I would say just the soft skills, right? And I think that comes down to the trust, is, you know, allowing them to shed some of their hardness and having to act a certain way, you know, and being resistant to being open to new opportunities for themselves. So we almost see, like, we always like see like a 180 in our customers from like the time they walk in the door or they resist to walk in the door to the time that they leave. And it's almost like a shedding process where we help support them with their barriers. And then, you know, they're able to shed some of the attachment to continuing to exist within that barrier, you know, bubble. And then the last thing I'll say is that we know, and there's been plenty of studies released lately, is that many of our youth are dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And so that is one thing that we've been really focused on providing support. So in all of our program, we have licensed behavioral therapists on site. We like to call them either family advocates or behavioral advocates. So they can provide some of that support that is not traditional therapy that we know that in many of our populations that we work with, there's a stigma behind, but it gives them an opportunity either to work in a group setting with other youth, to start again to unravel some of the layers of, you know, emotions and things that they're going through currently, so that they're able to take their next steps, because a lot of times that holds them back to being successful.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what are, you know, either of you could answer, what are, you know, say 3 or 4 of those soft skills that employers are asking for?
Yeah, so first, I would say the first one that we always say is conflict management, how to deal with conflict on the job, how to deal with conflict with a manager, just those type of personalities. If it's presented to you, how to deal with it. And then customer service, regardless of the industry that they're in, they will need to communicate properly. So we talk about our customer service design a lot, but a lot of that comes down to effective communication and active listening. You know, how can you, you know, work together as a team in the organization that you're hired with? So I will leave it with 2, and then Laurie can finalize either another 2.
Yeah, I think, you know, yes, for sure, the 2 Laura highlighted. And I think, you know, in talking with employers, work ethic is big, you know, how they approach and view the importance of work, as well as accountability, you know, reporting to work on time, reporting at all. You know, a lot of employers struggle with individuals showing up to work. And so, you know, that's a soft skill, right? You know, accountability. How do you hold yourself accountable to not let someone down and follow through on your commitments? And so I would say that those are probably the 2 biggest priorities. Employers can train you to do anything as long as you have a good work ethic, you're interested or involved, and you're accountable and you show up. And so beyond that, you know, they'll work through a lot. And that's a lot what Laura deals with, right? A lot of your barrier remediation is to help them be able to show up.
Yeah, and that's what you know, if I could say that the story that all of our employers are telling us is that we need people, and we say, okay, well, what do those people look like? And they say, someone that's going to show up, and we can teach them, we can train them, right? We need someone that's going to show up every day on time. And really, when I talked a lot about the trust, that is one of our core values as an organization. It's our first value, is we show up. we're never late with our customers. We follow through. We make sure that they receive the service that they deserve. And so we're initiating that response by giving that to them from the start. And then all of our programming is designed around that. Like, if a customer is late, we talk about why that has an impact now for the future. So we start to really tie everything back to employment and success in the future in the now.
Got it. So the now, and speaking of, using that as a jumping off point, I was thinking about age, because you work with, each of you works with a lot of different ages. And I'm wondering if the viewers, if they're picturing, older people. So the question is, what's sort of the typical ages that you work with, and how young do you go?
Yeah, sorry, for us, we're seeing a lot of drive and investment in youth. A lot of training opportunities and growth coming through between, for us, 18 to 24, just with construction due to some of the strict labor laws around it. I think Laura's 16, 16 to 24 is their youth range. So that is also a high priority range for a lot of our employers, because individuals haven't had a lot of work experience, if any, haven't developed bad habits or a level of expertise where they almost become untrainable because they think they know everything. And so employers are really interested in working with that age range, but I don't think there's limitations beyond that, because, even if you're in your 50s, you can still enter the fields of construction. You might not be doing the physical labor, but you may be a foreman, you may be a manager, director, you may be a teacher or an instructor in one of the trades, one of the trade schools. So, I would say it's ageless. A lot of my instructors are retired craftsmen, so they're in their 60s. Or above, and they're renewing their passion for their industry by teaching others. And so there's value in any age, but for the program participants, I would say a good majority are in that youth field for us.
Yeah, and we saw a shift. The Department of Education issued requirements for school districts to begin career pathways in middle school. I would say that happened about 5 to 6 years ago. And they gave the educators, this career pathway plan to be able to implement with their students, and they're educators, right? They know how to teach, they know how to support their students in the classroom. But when it came to career pathways, they were starting from scratch, trying to figure out how to do that. So that's where EDSI was able to step in and say, look, we're doing this, we've been doing it, and we can support you at a local level and really establish relationships that way. So through our business education partnership grant, we are actually starting now in middle school with our career pathways with some of our school districts. So this year we'll be targeting our middle school students to start that with.
That's great. That's great. I mean, it's great that you're able to reach kids younger. As we all know, by the time someone's 18, it's so late. I saw a study that said, by the time a child reaches 6th grade, that they're already considering leaving school. And it's like 6th grade, you're not even halfway through, but it's just and now with COVID, I'm sure it's amplified. We just don't have the data yet. So that's.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Didn't mean to cut you off. I said that's where you come in, right?
Right, exactly. And that's where we come. Behind me and on the table next to me is this portable woodworking program that we use hand tools so it's safe, and we train teachers so that an English teacher or someone who's just sort of handy or has some visual spatial ability and passion can successfully run a multi-year woodworking program by giving them all the lesson plans and training and support that they need, as well as the equipment so it can be done in a classroom. And it's been, very gratifying to see kids. We've had a couple anecdotal feedbacks where the teacher said, I think kids are actually coming to school because of woodworking. They're asking, hey, is today a woodworking day? Like they're really very eager to be there. And it's just, there's so many children, whether, privileged or not, who are very tactile, who are very kinetic. And, in our school system as a whole has been very focused on sitting still and worksheets and, going to college. And I'm hopeful that through this effort and other efforts, we're helping society at large realize there's incredible benefit to people who are good with their hands. There's many options. There's lucrative careers out there. And there's an enormous labor shortage that's happening now and is going to increase with that whole generation of people who are now in their 50s and 60s retiring from the trades and leaving a massive opening for youth. And so it's great to be part of this effort to connect those dots. One last thread is, can we talk about gender a little bit? Like the populations that you serve, is there an equal mix of male, female? And if not, or overall, what are efforts that can be done to get more girls into the trades and have access to opportunity? Who wants to? Laurie, do you want to start there?
Yeah, sure. I'll go further and, male, female, non-binary, whoever, however, or, you choose to identify. There's multiple varieties, so we'll be inclusive in that. I think, you really kind of have to target. It is predominantly, I think, when you look at the trades historically, it's been predominantly white male dominated. And in talking with some of the unions, as well as some of the employers, in the way that society has made shifts in these last few years, there is a priority being placed on changing the landscape and the look of the trades in general, being more inclusive, having more opportunities for not only non-traditional, for women and minorities, as well as younger populations. And so I think moving forward, I'm kind of excited. And of course, I myself have a partnership with the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, and that is a message that they've conveyed to me, that they're looking to change that landscape. And so working with populations through workforce, those are the populations that we serve. The underserved are typically minorities, typically women, and younger populations. The incarcerated are predominantly African American that come through our programs, the ex-offenders rather, or reentry populations. So the diversity across our workforce program begs us to really support that diversity and help integrate that into some not so diverse traditional workforce types. And so I'll let Laura add on to that as well.
Yeah, I would say that what Laurie said is the truth of what we see. What we would like to see is for that to be diversified more. And so that is part of the effort, is for us to do that and to start from scratch and getting good candidates out there for people to take a chance with. And a lot of that comes even with some of our on-the-job training opportunities, where we incentivize the employer to hire somebody that maybe they previously would have overlooked due to like lack of work history or just lack of connection to the industry. And we provide an incentive to train them through that program. But the one thing I wanted to touch on is that we did see a trend in our healthcare workers exhibiting many transferable skills to our manufacturing industry. So as healthcare gets more and more difficult for healthcare workers, they're looking for a career change. So, and we know that the healthcare industry is predominantly women. And so we are looking to support that shift as people are looking to leave healthcare and transition into, alternative employment. We are helping them to see what transferable skills they may have that could potentially be used in some of the other industries that are booming due to the retirement boom that we're currently seeing either through early retirement of our boomers or scheduled retirement of those individuals as well. So we're hoping to see the trend go upwards for non-traditional workers, and that is something that WIOA funding does prioritize, is non-traditional work settings for gender specific. So
I think too, Mike, if you're an employer in the market and you're trying to find candidates, you will be unsuccessful if you do not diversify your populations that you're looking for. There are not enough candidates in schools getting trained and educated right now that could fill the potential openings moving forward. So if you don't get on the bandwagon now and look for other ways to find people, support people through the education and training piece to get them pipelined into your organization, it's going to be a struggle for you to find and keep and retain employees. And so you have these populations that are just, begging for opportunity if given the piece of education that they need and the support through programs like Laura's, then, you'll have opportunities and you'll have more people, access to people that you wouldn't normally have otherwise.
Yeah, and I think part of that education starts with, and I know this will probably touch to some of the questions that we're seeing in the chat, is that if you don't know the labor market information of the county that you're working in, you need to understand it. And that's where the education should start and begin, and your program should be designed around having conversations with students or youth at an early age of what is realistic for them in the area that they live in. As far as trends of employment opportunities is really important. I have, had many conversations with youth that have dreams of, working in an industry that is non-existent in the county that they live in, but have no interest in moving outside the area that they live in. So just providing them with the labor market information of what's happening in the county, and then using that to, identify what your programming is and what your targets are for specific industries and partnerships.
That's great. That's great. I think we talked, there was a question about transferable skills. And I think those, we talked about the soft skills that are transferable. Are there any other transferable skills is there some possibly between the hard skills that Laurie talked about and the soft skills that you both about that might be relevant?
Yeah, I mean, for the trades in general, mathematics is big, right? You in building anything, there's geometry, there's addition, subtraction, multiplication, trigonometry. So there's a bunch of different angles and volume and things that you're, regardless of some of the machinery trades use, millimeters and the smallest measurements and the tools and equipment, right? So math, I would say, is probably one of the biggest hard skills, and I would consider that a hard skill that a student coming up throughout the process, if they can grasp it or if they're great at it, put them in that direction towards the trades. I think, Laura touched a little bit about some of the stigmas earlier about, like my mom, when I was growing up, she wouldn't allow me to go into the trades because it wasn't a traditional path. I challenge you, if you're an educator on the call or, working with youth and parents, to try and change that mindset. There are hundreds of thousands of millions of people in this country struggling with tuition debt. And if you take a path that goes through the trades, not only are you not going to have tuition to pay back, but you're going to be paid to learn. And so you're going to earn while you learn if you come through, apprenticeship tracks and pre-apprentice programs. And so transferable skills, communication, back to that, communicating and getting people to kind of open their mind and perspective and challenge those older ways of thinking in terms of education, I would say is impactful for people moving forward to help that.
Right. And reading as well, like maybe even at a 6th grade level, I believe a lot of training manuals are written at that level. So that I know from the carpenters, they talk about, fractions, being able to work at a 1/16 of an inch. So knowing your halves, quarters, eighths, and 16ths, and where where it's not matched, what's 3/16 plus 1/2. So yeah, it's impressive, right? Unit measurement.
Reading and measurement.
Yep. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot for a lot of people. So, I just wanted to thank you both so much, and end with and Laura, you gave a little bit, but of advice. If there was one piece of advice, and you can choose who the audience is. If there's one piece of advice you would want to give, what would each of you offer?
I think for me, the piece of advice I would give is in order for us to grow as a country and fill these openings moving forward for all of the industries and the trades industries and the Department of Transportation, all of the infrastructure that we need to work and maintain, start introducing your kids, your nephews, your nieces, your family members, your friends, your school students to a tool, to a piece of wood, to some string. You don't have to use power tools. You don't have to, everything, you can use a hand tool. But, when you talk, Mike, about how kids are asking for, is it woodworking day? Because it spurs so many different senses and creativity and tactile, working with your hands. Creativity. There's just so much positivity that comes from just making something, whether they progress to the trades or not, but give them that exposure early enough so that as they go through school, they can take a shop class, they can enroll in VOTEC, and they can take a path of education that will lead them to a better path moving forward. Instead of starting later at 18 or 24, they begin that cycle in the 6th grade, 5th grade, middle school. And if they don't ever get exposed to it, and no one ever shows them or teaches them anything or build a model or draw a picture, you're not going to have that excitement or that opportunity for that student to say, hey, I really like this. Let me look into this some more. So that would be my piece of advice.
Well, thank you.
And I love giving unsolicited advice. My advice would be to not try to do it all yourself. We are all overworked, and I would say lean on your local workforce development board to understand what is happening in your community, who are those that are out there that are providing the support, and then lean on them to help create whatever it is that you're looking to create. We are constantly partnering with people with no cost to just support, right? To carry out the mission, to just serve people to the best of our ability. So that would be my advice, to not try to have to feel like you have to do it all yourself or figure it out, and lean on your local workforce.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laurie. What an interesting discussion. And I think it's incredibly powerful and useful. And we look forward to furthering this movement. There's a huge justice element and a practical one that are intertwined. There's work out there, and there's people that need work. So let's keep connecting those dots. So thank you both again, and thank you all for being a part of this great webinar. Take
Thanks,
care,
Laurie.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.